Imagine this, a 200-ton jet attempting to land just moments away from the runway. Both engines failed. No power, no second chances. This is the true story of flight BA38, where only skill and precision mattered, where the air traffic controllers and the pilots saved the day. This case is so similar to AI171, yet so different. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel AvGeeks Diaries. Today, I'm going to be talking about British Airways flight number 38, the incident which occurred in Jan 2008. As I've mentioned earlier, this case is so similar to AI171, yet so different. At first, I'm going to be explaining about this case. Later, I'm going to compare between AI171 and this case. On 17th of Jan 2008, the British Airways flight BA38 was arriving from Beijing, China and was given clearance to land on the runway number 27L on Heathrow Airport. Heathrow Airport is one of the most congested airports in the world. In fact, it's the main airport of London. Remember this fact because we are going to use this fact towards the later part of this video. Anyways, the flight was descending and was at the altitude of 720 feet when it lost the power in both the engines. And it was just 2 miles away from the runway. The pilots, Captain Peter Burkull and First Officer John Coward, were given clearance to land on runway 27L of the Heathrow Airport. Everything seemed fine until both engines failed at an altitude of 720 feet. The pilots had only seconds to react. They had to take quick actions. Realizing the shortfall for runway, they immediately issued a mayday call to the ATC tower. The ATC on duty prioritized BA38, redirected the arrivals, and cleared all the aircrafts from the taxiway and runway, preparing for a potentially crash landing. The pilots, with their skill, precision, and experience, managed to have a controlled crash landing. In the sense, they landed on the grass within the perimeter of the Heathrow Airport. The landing gear collapsed. However, the aircraft skied forward, coming to a stop. This avoided a catastrophic impact. In fact, there is a book written by Captain Peter Burkull, 30 Seconds of Impact, which describes what exactly happened and how he felt during that moment. What was the outcome of this case? Well, to begin with, there were 0 fatalities. However, there was one major injury, a passenger with a broken leg, and there were 12 minor injuries which include cuts and bruises. But the fact that there was 0 fatalities, hats off to the pilot as well as ATCs. After thorough investigation, it was found that the reason for dual engine failure was contamination of fuel tank. The fuel was contaminated with some ice. Comparing this case with AI171, the similarities which are very obvious is that in both cases there was a dual engine failure. However, in this case it was during the landing, whereas in AI171 it was during the takeoff. During both the times, the pilots had only 30 to 32 seconds to react. I am no aviation expert, however, as far as I have observed, I personally feel that controlling a flight during landing is slightly easier than controlling a flight during the takeoff. Imagine this kind of scenario in your daily life. The action of climbing stairs versus getting down the stairs, which is more difficult. Climbing stairs, isn't it? Now if we compare this with the AI171 and BA38, BA38 was landing and even without thrust, pilots could glide down the aircraft while landing. However, the pilots could not do anything to control the AI171 while it was taking off. Us as commoners have no right to comment or blame the pilots without exactly knowing what has happened in the cockpit. The reason I choose to make this video comparing both of them is when I read about this BA38, I found it to be so similar to AI171. I personally feel that BA38 is the happier version of AI171. It in fact feels like a therapy to AI171. Or should I say that AI171 was trauma to BA38 because AI171 occurred much later to BA38. What's your opinion about this case? Do comment your views in the comment section. Also, like, share and subscribe if you like this case and want to hear more interesting cases. Apart from this, I also teach you aviation vocabulary in my shorts, so do check out my shorts. Thank you.